to Food Not Bombs and you feed Thanksgiving dinner to all sorts of people who are hungry and really appreciate it, how many of those people are the same people that were there last year, and how many are brand new homeless?
Yeah, well, there's a lot that were there, from last year. But so let me just kind of.
Okay, go ahead.
So I had so this is how I found. I mean, one of the ways that I found out. But I ended up living in Taos, New Mexico. But before I did that, I had a business partner who was murdered with a plutonium seed. Okay, now it's the size of, like, I don't know, probably pepper speckle, right? Black pepper speckle, one black pepper speckle. And what happened was is that we were working on helping the Native people on the reservations. We were working on putting in alternative medicine health clinic. We were involved in a lot of these healing machines long before other people were involved in them. We were involved with oxygen beds and all kinds of different, like, treatments. And so because the federal government in their position, my friend was becoming really good friends with Native people. He was helping them to see that they had resources on their land. The government was telling them they didn't have resources to keep them in poverty. Then the government would do things and pay them to mine on their land and then contaminate it. And so he was going in there trying to help them learn how to mine properly, clean up the toxic messes, things in a really, really good way. He helped to put together the silver depository bank on the Lakota land and mine silver to back people having bank accounts in silver. I have no idea what's going on with that right now, but he started that to get them out of poverty. So the next step was he brought me in, and I was working on putting together alternative medical health clinics that were all alternative, onto reservations. And then we would have, education, and Native people would be, a lot of them that were original medicine people that came from original medicine lines that did, original energy medicines and, ceremony and all these different things and herbal medicines. Those would be, they would be people that would treat people in the clinic, and then we would have education where, they could learn massage, people could learn massage and all kinds of stuff, and also create jobs. And then we were going to create an alternative medical insurance, so that people in the U.S. could buy the insurance and go to reservations and go there and be treated at these alternative medical clinics. Meanwhile, my business partner was buying up old mines that were super contaminated, and he was just cleaning up the tailings. I mean, he had one mine in Arizona, and the U.S. wouldn't even let anybody assay it, so he had to actually hire. It was the first time that anyone has ever assayed property in mining in the U.S. from another country, and he brought in some people from Germany and other to assay. This is one property, and he had $317 billion in platinum, and there was nickel and all this other stuff in the tailings, and the tailings is what's left behind, and there's usually a lot of mercury in it. There's a lot of, serious harsh chemicals in it. So he was cleaning up the land and then collecting, the valuable resources that were left behind in these mounds, and then using that, to buy and sell, to buy more of these mining properties to clean them up, and then also to fund alternative medicine, right? Alternative medicine clinics. Because he'd been a client of mine for about 6 years, and he was involved in alternative medicine. But he really saw from the work that I did on him and with him, and how I kept him alive through the battles with the government and everything else, no matter, what they did to him. In the end, I couldn't help him from the plutonium poisoning. But what happened is he was invited to George Bush Jr.'s first inauguration party, and he should have known then. And they basically told him that, you know, they wanted his mines and they would pay a fair market value for them. And he wasn't going to be able to keep them. You know, he had them on the stock market and penny stock because he was trying to get enough money to start, you know, creating the dory bars and getting them sold and all this other stuff so that we could work on these other projects that we had. And so eventually they illegally, you know, treated him. They said that he was doing penny stock fraud, all kinds of, you know, crazy stuff that they do to steal his company because he let them know that he was unwilling to just hand his family's company that he's been building for 13 years and had, you know, basically fought at every state, the state's trying to steal the businesses from him or shut him down. And just like, it just was super crazy. I'm surprised it didn't just drop dead. And then so he ended up at the Justice Department. And the last hearing at the Justice Department, they illegally said that he had done penny stock fraud, that he wasn't going to go to jail, of course, but he was going to have to pay them $5 million. And he would have to turn his company into a public company so that, you know, these effing assholes could buy, you know, 52% of his company and take it over. I mean, that's really what they were doing. They were just beating him down, but they gave him a plutonium radiation seed because 2 months before this hearing at the Justice Department, he had an alternative medical scan, and he didn't even have a clogged artery. Nothing wrong with him. Top of the health, right? And he left the Justice Department after the hearing. He was driving across the United States because he no longer flew, because they were always trying to attack him. You know, if he would have went into an airport, they would have like detained him. God knows what they would have done to him. They'd always, if he went through airports, they'd steal all of his luggage and everything. One time they literally confiscated 2 dory bars that were valued at about $700,000 and never gave them back, and did everything that they possibly could to, you know, completely put him out of business. And this whole native, you know, alternative medicine thing really pissed the powers that be off. I mean, really set them off on fire. So we were like under major attack. I mean, I would come home and the front door would be unlocked, and I could tell that people had been. I kept moving around to different apartments, and they would put in listening devices and all kinds of stuff. Like shortly after I'd move into these places, and I mean, in the middle of the night, you could hear like one of the devices go south, and you'd hear and trying to find it, and then you look through everything, and then they end up having to call the maintenance people, and they have to take off actually the mirror thing out of the wall, and it's behind there. You know, it was like the craziest, unbelievably stuff. I can't even tell people what it was like. And then, you know, in the end, they tried to dismiss me as like his hooker, right, instead of his business partner. And we even had investors coming in from like Antigua. They wanted us to put up a full-on alternative medical clinic there. And they wanted to help some of the people that were impoverished in the Caribbean, you know, to have good jobs and work for the clinic and to do food growing for our clinics, because that was part of it, is that we grew most of the food on site and that we served raw food and vegan food that was from our food on site from the centers. So, because I had developed this whole thing, you know. And so, anyway, so what happened was he was drinking the water at the Justice Department because they were like, the last hearing he said was epic. Lasted like 3 days, you know, same thing that they put, not that I'm saying Kavanaugh's a good person or whatever, but if anybody watched that nightmare, I mean, it was like 12 hours a day they were putting him through the stupidest questioning of all time. Anyway, so he left there, he was in his car, he started coughing like the 3rd day. He pulls into a hospital in Oklahoma. Mind you, he lived in Las Vegas. And he's trying to get home, right? He's trying to get back to Vegas, and he's just feeling really, really bad. He makes it to Oklahoma. He goes into the ER just to see what's going on because the cough is getting super, super bad. Mind you, he had nothing wrong with him before he went there. And he goes in, they do a chest x-ray and all this other stuff, and he has stage 6 cancer in days after. So we knew that they gave him a plutonium, radioactive seed. And he died. He didn't even leave that hospital. He died in 2 weeks. Coughing up blood, all kinds of stuff, and died because it's not the kind of cancer that you can cure. So when I'm talking about this nuclear fallout that's going on in California, and it's in the air, and this cloud is moving around, and people are going to breathe in that plutonium, that's how fast you can die. And they love, the powers that be love to use nuclear stuff on people. In 2007, I was living in Taos, New Mexico. I was supposed to be working on a project, and it, fell apart after I got there. But I ended up going. Taos, New Mexico is probably one of the most brilliant, conscious, amazing place. I mean, I think like the most conscious people in America move there. And every week, there was somebody, that's where I met Keith McHenry, who was the founder of Food Not Bombs like 40 years ago. I was working on, he was given money for like the World Peace Conference. It was going to be one of the first peace conferences in the world. New Mexico put up a $100,000 grant in order for Keith to do it. I was on the think tank. We were expecting like 50,000 people to come from all over the world. We were going to put it, adjacent to the like 30-year, reunion of Food Not Bombs, because it's international, feeding the homeless and standing up against war. So that's when I really learned about nuclear warfare, and that was after my business partner died and was murdered. And the government stole all my retirement, $800,000 off the stock market. They had people terrorizing me. I had people stalking me. I had people breaking into my house. I had to give my one parrot I had away that I had for 14 years because she had post-traumatic stress disorder. Because anytime anybody had like a flashlight or a light, she just would totally go nuts. And I realized it was because people were breaking into my house, at night or when I was gone or if I was working or whatever else. I mean, she had like, my bird even had post-traumatic stress from the people that were breaking into my house and monitoring me. And, it's part of the reason why I'm still living the way that I live. Like I pack up, live in my van, pack up at any time and head out because I have no idea. I have no idea what will happen to me. And also being in alternative medicine, I was in the first wave where they tried to illegally come after us with fake cease and desist and arrests and force us out of our practices and try to arrest us and threaten us and all this other stuff. Now they just murder us. Now there's like 160 of us that have been murdered in the United States alone in the last 4 years. I mean, flat out. Some of them, not only are they shot, but their wife is shot and their kids. They just walk in and shoot the whole family and leave them. And nobody is actually investigating it. So what is going on right now in the U.S. should be super, super concerning, not only for the people, the United States citizens. There's plenty of information out there right now on the underground media, a lot of the YouTube channels, and people really need to start getting this information out, because if this war on the border of Mexico and the United States breaks out into a major deal, I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen. And it's like, they need these crazy people who wrote the Bible, because the Bible is completely fake. It was written by the Romans, right? So that they could, basically control the masses. So there's like a lot of crazy stuff, they need this, they need the interpretation of, Armageddon and all this stuff to actually happen. And they have, like, a president right now. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, but he is not wanting to spend money on war. And he doesn't really want to occupy other countries. And he doesn't want to really be the military for other countries. And so they can't get their World War III Armageddon to happen, so that there can be, like, world takeover and, whatever their weird ass agenda is, because this is their whole agenda, World War III, it's biblical, and since it's in the minds of so many people, they thought as a spell that they would just be able to get people to comply with it. Well, they have people now that just aren't going to comply with it, and they're trying to fight. But Americans have got their heads so far deep buried in the sand that they're going to end up sick and dying, and there's nothing that's going to happen. And then, the ETs will come in, and after we're all dead, and they'll clean up the planet, and they'll reestablish humans again. And they'll probably, like, reincarnate us back through their, heaven prison program. So it's no loss for them. You know what I mean? It's a huge loss for us. It's a huge loss for our families and
But
our
we
loved
can
ones
stop it by not
and
playing that
everything
game.
else. And, huh?
We can stop it by changing that game and working on human scale and dealing with the planet. Because the planet is a living being, and if we can get the metabolism of the planet fixed, it requires really stopping the industrial disease that's going on. And if we can get people to focus on human scale and planet scale instead of global governance scale, and just figure out what we need within our communities to start working to build those communities up from human scale, I think that we're going to find that the entire infrastructure is a house of cards and will collapse on itself. We definitely need to figure out how to control the dissemination of everything that they've let loose to clean up the messes, but we've also got to release the dissemination of knowledge and talk about what we know and have discussions and forums and ways that people in community who disagree with each other can learn other perspectives in a valid resonance.
I think that would have worked. I think that would have worked 20 years ago. But the deal is like, things are escalating in such a way that there's really, like, no time for that stuff right now. And it may be like an after game. But I mean, like, for me personally, I've been working in my communities for a long time. Been working in the Reno area. Like, I started working on these alternative health clinics in 2002, right? Watched my business partner, and not only my business partner, but the year before they murdered my business partner, they murdered my best friend, right? To get me to stop doing the stuff that I'm doing, I don't want, as soon as things change and shift a little bit, I'm not going to be out in the community. I don't want to help people in the community anymore. I don't want to deal with the people in the community anymore, because I'm really tired of them being completely asleep to kind of what's going on. And I don't really see this whole party going very well. And what I'd like to do personally is I'd like to just get myself located in Idaho or Montana and work on my little section of reality and doing microbial mass, cleaning up my little area, cleaning up the radiation, cleaning up the heavy metals, growing my own food, living in a yurt, and really not even have a car that I have to go into town anymore. I mean, that's kind of like how I see my life in the near future, is totally pulling myself out of the community and pulling myself out of anything in the public.
Go to basic
and for me, I
existence.
feel like, huh?
Basic existence 101. Grow your food, make your shelter, do what you do,
I've been a whistleblower for 30 years. I've been a whistleblower for 30 years. I was involved with people that escaped from NASA, and 27 years ago.
Yeah.
I have had visions. I have a star family. I've tried to teach people about what's coming,
95.
you know. And the thing is, it's turning out that they're right.
Yeah.
They're right. They're right. This is coming. Even the ET thing. The ETs. This is the bottom line: is the gray ETs tell almost every person that they abduct that has a memory that the grays have come from the future, and that they are what is humans. They are us in the future, and the reason why they're discolored, why they can't really be in certain kinds of environments. They have really horrible immune systems. Their arms and limbs are super skinny and spindly, is because of all of the nuclear radioactive material on Earth. And this is what humans have mutated into. And that they found a way to come from the future to the present to collect biological material before the biological material is completely contaminated with radioactive material worldwide, so that they can actually start creating new humans, right, to take to the future. And some of them they're adapting as gray and human hybrids. Now, they've been telling people this for 30 years, right? And no one is listening. And everybody thinks, oh, we're ascending, the galactics are coming, they're going to help us. Where are they? I mean, we have so much radioactive material on this planet right now, and with the fallout in California, and with the Fukushima that happened in 2011, that, you know, there's not going to be anybody that's going to live long term on the West Coast. Your lifespan, you know, from the moment that you're born, and, you know, with the 5G, you know, Mark says that it's killing babies full term because 5G does this really wacko stuff to water. And so babies are in water in the womb. And the 5G affects the water and basically kills the fetus. So there's stuff going on that people aren't even going to be able to repopulate the earth, and they're dying when they're a fetus, full term. And this is happening in the UK. It's like the number one reason why there aren't any live births. Can you imagine, like, the mothers that are carrying a baby that's dead, and then they have to find that out? I mean, that's just, I can't even imagine. I'm not really sure I could recover from that, and I've never had a kid, but I'm not sure I could recover from that. Having a dead baby and carrying a dead baby around in my room. Yep, I don't even think I could psychologically recover from that. Ever.
No. And in fact, the psychological...
I would, you know, as a mother...
Yeah, the psychological ramifications of the things that people put themselves through are totally based on what they've been taught in theater and movies and television, and the reality that Americans believe is created by what they have absorbed from information sources that we don't know whether they're true or not. And so for everyone to individually believe the party line as a unified truth requires, 12 years of prison that we call edumacation? And it's not fair to our children. We need to restore childhood. And if children can't have childhood before they come into this world...
Right now, because the place where they've put all the 5G is in the schools. So right now in Reno, in Nevada, right, they have almost on every high school and middle school football field. I just went by Wooster High School in Sparks. They have 2 huge cell phone towers right on the football field, right? Right on the school. So where they're putting in, because schools are allowing it, they've had cell phone towers on all school premise, right? The cell phone towers, and even Mark said when I talked to him, the 5G guy, he said that he hasn't seen any of the stuff that we have in America, and it's way more dangerous and way more deadly on the 5G level. He said that he's seen things that people have sent photos of that are way worse than what they have in the UK. So all of the cell phone towers are basically on elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. And also, all the schools are outfitted with major Wi-Fi, bombarding the kids all day, every day, right? And then the kids on top of it are carrying cell phones, they have tablets, and they have computers running in their classrooms, right? So there isn't this, we're not at this point where we can say, oh, well, we have to re-educate children. No, children are not going to live. That's why 1 in 5 kids right now has early childhood cancer. So they're actually dying. They're dying in droves, right? And what we're seeing on the news, like this whole thing from St. Jude Hospital, I don't watch TV. Sorry, guys, I'm just a little pissed off today.
It's okay. Keep going.
I'm watching this commercial on the TV in the house because, you know, I work out here. I have a shed and I have my car and I do all my work and everything else. And I stay away from the house because it has too much Wi-Fi, even though we live outside of town.
Right.
And I go in there and all the TVs are on, right, because this is how normal people live. And I saw this commercial while I was making a sandwich, and it was like St. Jude's Hospital, and it's on during the daytime where all the housewives are home, right? About the time that all of the kids are maybe at school or taking a nap or whatever else. And so St. Jude's Hospital comes on with all these kids that are bald, that are going through chemotherapy, that look like hell. And, you know, they start saying, well, 1 in 5 children will have childhood cancer. But thank God there's St. Jude's, and, you know, we have chemotherapy treatments for your children. Then they have all these parents on there crying, oh, yeah, St. Jude's helping us with our child. And the child, did anyone ask why kids have childhood or cancer?
Or childhood education.
Well, why does 1 in 5 have to have cancer? Why does 1 in 5 have cancer? Oh,
yeah,
maybe
what's
the
going
Wi-Fi on the schools? And then I'm waiting. I'm trying to get a friend of mine to take me so I can do a video for my YouTube channel so that we can go to all the schools in the area and I can do videos at each one to show the Wi-Fi towers. Not just one Wi-Fi tower, but 2 Wi-Fi towers. And then the whole schools are outfitted. That's a crime, okay? You should not be able to be allowed to put a cell phone tower on a place where children are 8 or 9 hours a day. That should not happen. That should just not be. That is a total crime. And a lot of these people that are working in school, especially in Oregon, that are advocates, they're now in some of the schools in Oregon, they're starting to become more aware of the Wi-Fi problems and what they're doing to kids. And it's giving them really bad behavior. It changes the chemistry in the brain. It makes the children not able to sit still, not able to listen. It makes kids psychotic, creates like bipolar behavior, and it makes the kids like a lot more erratic, right? So
yes,
it shouldn't be happening that we have Wi-Fi towers on childhood playgrounds. I mean, it just shocks me. And then now we're getting ready. I don't know when California flipped 5G. That's why all these fires are happening. They can like burn stuff down. They're microwave weapons of war, so they can target the 5G. There are people that show their phones that survived the Paradise Fire, and they show their phones turned over where the 5G sent a pulse in their phone and cooked the back of their phone. So it would have started a fire in their house, and they may have on the counter, and they may have not. It would have been a serious 5G fire, a flash fire, and they wouldn't even got out or survived. if their phone would have gotten the full strength of that 5G. And that's how they're starting these fires, is they're sending the 5G pulse through, Wi-Fi, cell phones, smart TVs, and all this other stuff. It sends the electronic pulse. It catches everything on fire in your house. It's like a flash fire, and it burns you, cooks you immediately. And then, so this is what they're doing in California. The 5G has been up there since May. It's the first state in the country to have 5G. They're setting up Nevada right now for 5G. I saw the hugest tower with the biggest cylinder I have seen in the whole area the other day. It's right next door to Sierra Pacific Power. I have 2 friends that work at that office. I was there yesterday. I said to her, and she's pretty conscious, I said, have you seen your 5G tower that's a block away? She said, no. I said, let me take you over there to show you that. And she looked up at it and she said, what the fuck is that? And I said, that's 5G. And I said, that thing probably can send a pulse for miles and could kill everything. And one of the things Mark said that is human combustion. That 5G signal, that microwave signal, can actually send out a signal and cook you where you stand.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so we're at game over, right? There is no working in community. There is no like getting people woken up. There's none of this, because there isn't going to be anything alive. And if they cook most of the population, who's going to fight against them? I mean, right now, we really all need to be going down to our legislatures, to our city councils at the meeting, and get on record, because they videotape it all, and you get on record, and you just like totally freak out, bring all the research that you can, and make sure that they fully see you and all the people see you in there. I've done a lot of, I'm not saying that, things change around rapidly, but it's like one of the only things that we can do, and really start getting media working about the concerns that are going on. And that's why, like at this point in time, as soon as I can step out of being in, right now I've positioned myself in an area in my van where the closest even cell phone towers is quite a ways away. And I haven't seen any 5G towers kind of in the proximity. But next, after they get the 5G, because see, a lot of people are denying getting the 5G on their house, because they basically have to outfit the houses every other house. Mark was saying once this happens, as soon as that 5G is on, every house in those neighborhoods, they start to have nosebleeds. Within 6 months, you're dead. Everyone in the house is dead, right? Because you get like, a really fast occurring brain cancer, whatever else. He's going to trial, and the second trial date, and he had all these people who are living in 5G neighborhoods in the UK that have the nosebleeds, that have cancer, and all these people were going to testify at the hearing. He was bringing them on to testify, and most of them have died.
Yeah. And it's not that they have any feeling of dying. Yeah. There's so many things that add up so wrongly about things that have been going on for the spraying of chemtrails, the industrial pollution of rivers. We were talking about radiation. There's that place, Hanford, up the Columbia between Washington and Oregon, where it's just leaking radiation into the Columbia River, pulling it through Portland.
Yeah, there's 3 of them in the same area. There's Pendleton, Hanford, and Tri-Cities.
Yeah.
And they're all like kind of within 100 miles of each other or something like that. And so the rates there, just of that, right? So the contamination, basically, when they put a lot of this nuclear radiation, because I know from working with people up in Spokane, Washington, in underground science communities and stuff, that the reason why up there, the rate of lung cancer, skin cancer, and brain cancer is so severe is because of that contamination. Because when they initially they buried the nuclear radioactive material from the 40s and 50s, and they buried it underground. They put it in aluminum containers, and it ate through all the aluminum containers a long time ago. And I think, isn't it like Tri-Cities? I can't remember which one even,
Tri-City is where
but
Hanford
basically
is
all the,
located.
yeah, and in some cases they only buried it like 4 feet underground. So once it ate through the containers like a long time ago, then it goes into the whole water system. And they said one area, it's leached out 600 miles radius is how far
Yeah,
that it's gone around one of the sites.
they were
In the
tracking when the
shoreline
plume
water.
would hit the Columbia, and it hit in about 2015, give or take a year. So that the plume of radioactivity material has reached the Columbia River to where it's directly now going into the Columbia River.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is a
that's the
big
same thing with
problem.
the what is that? What's the river that runs into Albuquerque? The Rio Grande River? Is that it?
I don't know
I think
my
it's the Rio Grande.
southwestern geography.
Anyway, same thing. In 2000, the native people, when I was in Talos, the native people, so the Los Alamos nuclear bomb making plant, okay, this is where the bombs that were dropped in Japan, like Hiroshima and stuff like that, were made.
Mm-hmm.
That plant caught on fire in like 1999, and 3/4 of it burned to the ground. So the whole below Los Alamos and all of northern New Mexico is thoroughly contaminated with radioactive ash all over. Well, the Pueblos, each Pueblo is a native land. It's their home. I don't call them reservations because they're not reservations. The only people in all of America, native people, that retained their own lands were the Pueblos in New Mexico against the first invaders, the Spanish. They all rose up together and fought a lot of these, people out. So the native people went to the government because they started to see problems in their people all of a sudden. Because type 2 diabetes comes from, 5G now because it's microwave radiation, but there was no type 2 diabetes until there was nuclear, right? So a lot of this nuclear stuff has created actually type 2 diabetes, and now people are really going, crazy. Everybody's coming down with type 2 diabetes because of the microwave radiation, Wi-Fi, cell phones. I mean, and we haven't even really hit 5G yet. Can you even imagine? So anyway, when I was down in New Mexico and I was living in Taos, and I was going to all these people, these amazing people, they had this theater that they used for truth information. And every week, sometimes twice a week, somebody would show a video, a documentary, and there would be a huge question and answer dialogue around that. So early on, I got involved with food sovereignty because of this. Keith McHenry that was involved in that. Famine, drought, a lot of these, concepts, rehabilitating, earth, microbial mass. And then just anything that came along, I was so interested while I was in Taos. So every time they would do one of these productions while I lived there for, 6 months, twice a week or once a week, I would go to these things because they were free and be involved in the dialogue of what was going on. This was 2007. What was going on on the planet? What was going on in our government? What was going on? And so one of the groups, the board of the tribe, so a whole bunch of Pueblos got together and they elected people for this board. And basically it was a nuclear board because the native people went to the government after the Los Alamos plant burned down a couple of years after and said, hey, look, what happened at the Los Alamos plant? And they tried to get attorneys and get FOIAs and all these other things sent in to try to get information because they were having serious health problems and like cancer had increased, diabetes had increased, infant mortality, babies weren't surviving, like all kinds of stuff. So the Indians were like, Native people were like, and Talos were just like, what the hell's going on? Well, the government wouldn't tell them. So they realized they had to bypass the government. So they started pulling all their money together and they hired actual nuclear scientists that worked for them and them only. And they bought all this equipment and they started putting it out at different kinds of elevations, different places. And the scientists would go out and collect data so the native people could figure out what was going on. Well, the next time that the government told the native people, well, we tested this year and this is where the radiation levels are, which were extremely low, they said, no, you're a liar, because we hired our own scientists, we hired our own equipment, and this is what the radiation levels are. And the government was like, okay, well, we're not going to talk to you anymore, and you shouldn't talk to other people anymore about this. And then the government tried to corrupt the scientists that were working for them. But the radiation levels were so off the chart, even up to because of the ash that came down, even 11,000 feet elevation, everywhere. Well, then what started to come out, so they had this board people that would come and they would teach the public and show movies about nuclear radiation in different communities across the United States, and what people are dealing with high cancer and childhood cancer and all this other stuff. And they started educating us. And so I had no idea about nuclear anything, okay? Because the baby boomers were active against these nuclear plants even being put in, huge. And then somehow JFK, got murdered or whatever, and then they all shut down. They all went into a coma. They went to college, and then they became part of the problem. They became the government. They became the attorneys, and they were all paid off. And they ceased to, do the work that they originally started. They gave up. So, so I had to learn about all of this nuclear stuff. I was shocked. I was so unbelievably shocked my period in Taos, because there were so many things that I never learned about in my entire life. Never had seen. No one had ever talked to me about. Nobody had ever educated me about. Never saw it in school. Just
Well, those are the things we're on radio to talk about. And
yeah, so I just, the whole time I was in Taos, I was just in shock. But I kept going to try to educate myself. So that's how I learned about nuclear and the effects of nuclear and all of the problems with nuclear. And that really started to drive me as kind of a serious activist. I mean, I think at that point in time, I actually started making my tinfoil hats and, wearing them proudly.
Yeah. I wanted to let the radio audience know that this is the new way on Steampunk Radio, and you're listening to it on the TuneIn app. I'm Dr. Lenny Thyme. My guest is Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. Bridgette, can you give the listeners out there your information on where you would like them to find you in the world?
Yeah, I have my YouTube channel, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes YouTube channel. And I haven't really been doing a lot of videos lately. I've been kind of depressed myself. I've been kind of overwhelmed with what's going on, and trying to dig my way through it emotionally and get on top of it. I also have, and then I have my radio show, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show on freedomslips.com, or Freedom Slips, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and I'm in Studio A at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This week, I have Mark Steele on.
Saturday.
Okay. He's the expert in microwave radiation weapons.
We had him on last 5G.
Week. Yeah.
He's awesome.
Looking forward to having him on. Yeah, on Saturday. And then also you can find me at coe-llc.com. And that's the other problem is I'm kind of really not really doing a lot of healthcare work or traditional osteopath work or working on people and animals, because I don't want to charge people for it, because what I'm doing isn't going to matter with nuclear fallout. You know what I mean? It's just it would help you if you didn't have nuclear fallout. You could help with your DNA. It could help with you arresting disease and all these other things. But the things that I have that I can do to cure you are not going to help you with 5G. It's not going to help you with nuclear radioactive ash. It's not going to help you with any of this other stuff. I can run down your timelines. I can do shamanism sessions. I've been doing them for over 30 years, been trained by Native people to do them. I could run down your timelines and clean up just about any possible thing that is causing whatever problems that you have right now. But it's not going to help you against, it would just be blowing, hot air up your skirt. It's like a lie. So lately when people call me, like I just talk to them about the radio, maybe prepare with iodine. Like right now,